Starting next month, my husband and I are moving back home, so any single people like you need to move out. The call from my sister after a long time was unbelievably selfish. As I listened to her voice on the other end of the phone, saying whatever she pleased, I suddenly remembered the past. Ever since we were little, my sister treated me like a convenient servant. If I ever tried to resist, she'd hit me and force me into submission. To her, it was perfectly natural for me to obey, and she had no idea how outrageous her words were. I let out a quiet sigh. My sister hadn't changed, but I had. It was about time she learned her place, and I slowly opened my mouth to speak. My name is Amanda, and I just turned 36 the other day. I work at a company. Looking and acting like any ordinary woman you'd see anywhere. But my family is a bit, very strange. And not in a good way. I have an older sister by 3 years. Named Margaret. She is incredibly beautiful. Having inherited the best features from our parents, who were a beautiful and handsome couple.
Margaret is really cute. We're such happy parents to have such a beautiful daughter.
My parents were very focused on appearances, choosing each other mainly because of their looks. But 3 years after Margaret was born, I came along with a plain face. Who do you even take after? Seriously, how did we end up with such an average-looking child? My parents had no problem saying such things to me. Although they didn't physically abuse me, I don't think they ever showed me any love. Before long, they started comparing my looks with Margaret's, doting on her while neglecting me. Since I'm cuter than Amanda, this pretty doll suits me better. Influenced by our parents, Margaret began to look down on me. She would often take my toys if she liked them, making them her own. At first, I cried and resisted, but she would hit me until I submitted. Our parents turned a blind eye to this. And I gradually came to accept that being trampled on by Margaret was just the way things were. Toys, sweets, whatever I wanted, Margaret would take. In response, I decided to focus on something she couldn't take away from me, studying. When I was crying over Margaret's bullying, a girl from my class who was worried about me offered this advice.
Amanda, you're good at studying. You even helped me with my homework, and you got good grades on the last test, right? You can beat Margaret when it comes to studying.
Hearing her words, I felt grateful and realized she was right. Studying brought results in proportion to the effort I put in, which was fulfilling and enjoyable for me.
Yes. Straight A's on my report card.
1 year, I received all A's on my report card. Recently, I had been getting nearly perfect scores on tests and was often praised directly by my teachers. Thinking my parents might finally praise me, I came home excitedly. Wow, that's impressive. Even at the last parent-teacher meeting, the teacher was full of praise. Well, it's good you have some strengths besides your looks. Though their enthusiasm was lower than when praising my sister, my parents still praised me. Hearing those words, I was so happy I felt like I could jump for joy. But my happiness was quickly shattered by my sister.
You're below me. It's 100 years too early for you to be praised by Mom and Dad.
Jealous that our parents had praised me, my sister threw away all my study materials. The act was so cruel that I burst into tears. When our parents came to check on the commotion, they didn't scold my sister. We'll buy you new ones, so stop crying.
Margaret doesn't need to study, she's a beautiful and charming girl. Just being here is enough.
Seeing my mother sigh in exasperation and my father comforting my sister, I realized that being accepted as a member of this family was just my misconception. From then on, all I thought about was leaving this house as soon as possible. After that, I stopped showing my emotions at home and kept my conversations with my family to a minimum. My parents didn't seem to care much, but my sister continued to bully me, finding it a convenient way to relieve her stress. When I was a junior in high school, my sister, who had already graduated and was working part-time, made an outrageous statement. I spent all the money for your college. Sorry, I didn't mean to. She had used up all the money our parents had saved for my college education. On brand name bags, clothes, and other things. Her behavior was so outrageous that I was left speechless with shock. My parents, on the other hand, said,
"Well, Margaret can't manage with just her part-time job income. That's right, it's unavoidable. Amanda, give up on going to college."
They didn't scold her, but told me to give up on my college plans. For a moment, I felt a surge of intense anger towards my parents for favoring my sister so much. But getting angry wouldn't solve anything. So, I looked for colleges I could attend using scholarships, working part-time to save money while studying. After being accepted to college, I immediately moved out and started living on my own, using the money I had saved.
Do you really want to go to college that badly? You're such a nerd. Wasting your youth on studying and working part-time, your life is over.
Even though her actions forced me to work hard, my sister showed no awareness of that and instead mocked me. But after passing the college entrance exams and moving out, I was no longer bound by her. It was at this point that I was finally free from my sister. For a while after that, I could live peacefully. I made friends in college, learned many things, and gained various life experiences. After graduating from college, I got a job at a major company and started dating a coworker I met there. His name is Ronald. He was very kind and always agreed with my opinions. However, peace didn't last long. I was thinking about marrying Ronald and decided to introduce him to my parents as my fiancé.
Oh, he's from the same company? If he's working at a major firm, then I guess it's fine.
My parents seemed uninterested in Ronald's plain looks, and their attitude was like, "Go ahead if you want to marry him." Meanwhile, I noticed my sister eyeing Ronald closely. She was already in her 30s, still living at home and working part-time. She spent too much money to save up and couldn't afford to move out. My sister then did something unbelievable.
"I want you to break up with me. I've fallen in love with your sister."
One day, Ronald called me to a rather fancy restaurant, and my sister was there with him. As I wondered why she was there, Ronald dropped a bombshell.
"I'm sorry, Amanda. I fell in love with Ronald the moment I saw him,"
my sister said, pressing herself against Ronald. He looked smitten, his face flushed with desire. Seeing the two of them like that, I realized what was going on. My sister had stolen my fiancé.
"Ronald has a promising future at a major firm, right? Marrying him would make me a winner."
My anger rose at my sister's complete lack of remorse. I had thought Ronald was a kind person. But looking back, I realized he was just a pushover, agreeing with whatever was convenient at the time. Ronald wasn't kind, he just went along with whatever was convenient at the time. And Margaret, well, she was even worse. Her domineering behavior was tolerated when we were kids, but not anymore as adults.
"Oh, really? Then I'll be asking for compensation."
So I decided to do what I could and replied calmly. But my sister scoffed.
"Huh? You and Ronald aren't even married yet. There's no way you can claim compensation."
"I can.
Look it up online. Don't think you'll get away with stealing my fiancé."
My sister looked puzzled, and Ronald paled slightly. Then, they did something even more unbelievable. They eloped and disappeared from my life.
"They moved somewhere else because they didn't want to pay you compensation. It's your fault Margaret is gone. I was looking forward to having grandkids."
My mom blamed me after hearing from my sister about their elopement, not criticizing her for her outrageous behavior. My dad was the same, demanding how I planned to take responsibility.
Is everyone around me completely unreasonable?
Ignoring my parents' insults, I let out a big sigh. It would be hard to claim compensation now. So, I decided to forget about my sister and Ronald and look forward to meeting someone new. 5 years later, I got a call at work from an unfamiliar number.
"Hello?"
Since I use my phone for work, I thought it might be a work-related call and answered immediately. However, it wasn't someone from work.
"Hi, Amanda. It's been a while. Is that Margaret?" "Yeah, it's me."
The cheerful voice on the other end was my sister. Since she had eloped with Ronald, I hadn't contacted her at all. I tried calling her once, but the call wouldn't go through, probably because she had blocked me. After that, I never tried to contact her again. Seeing an unknown number on my phone, I figured she must have gotten a new phone during the time we were out of touch. I was a bit surprised by the sudden call from my sister, but I was sure it was nothing good. I frowned and was about to hang up.
What do you want? I'm busy with work.
Come on. Isn't it a bit too cold for a sisterly chat after so long? I held back from saying, "Did you forget what you did?" and kept my mouth shut. Saying something wrong would only make things worse. But I was really busy with work and didn't have time to deal with her.
If you don't tell me what you want, I'm hanging up.
I'm really busy.
Fine, fine.
Then she said something that made my eyes widen.
Starting next month, my husband and I are moving back home, so any singles like you need to move out.
The message was so selfish that my brain initially refused to process it. But as I gradually understood its meaning, I remembered that this was exactly the kind of person my sister was and felt like holding my head in frustration.
After eloping, I married Ronald, and we had a cute child who looks like me. I want to start being a good daughter and thought it was time to move back home. We're tired of living here and want a fresh start back in our hometown.
Despite not asking, my sister began bragging about her recent life.
So, you're in the way. You live at home, right? You need to move out before we get there.
Yes, I had returned home before she did. My mom had fallen ill, and I was practically forced to come back to take care of her. It would be more accurate to say I was dragged back. My father threatened to withdraw as my guarantor for my previous apartment if I didn't return. Although I could have used a company to act as a guarantor, I knew my father would cause a huge fuss if I refused, so I had no choice but to return home. By the way, my sister, who had been living with my parents, moved in with her then boyfriend before my mother fell ill. She had managed to steal my fiancé while dating another guy, doing something utterly outrageous.
Oh, and make sure you clean up before you leave, okay? Also, get a housewarming gift ready. Since you have no sense, just give cash.
I let out a quiet sigh at my sister's incredibly selfish demands. Then, I slowly opened my mouth and replied to her.
Okay, got it. Can I hang up now? I need to get back to work.
My surprisingly compliant response seemed to shock her.
Yeah. If you understand, then fine. Okay, I'm hanging up.
I ended the call with my sister. Even after 5 years, her selfishness hadn't changed, it might have even gotten worse.
Blissful ignorance.
I muttered to myself, unheard by anyone. A month later, I received another call from my sister while I was at work. Knowing what was coming, I got up from my desk and entered an empty conference room. I knew this call would be long.
Hello?
As soon as I answered, my sister's shrill voice pierced my ears.
Hey, the house is gone!
Her predictable reaction almost made me laugh. You see, the house she was supposed to move into had already been demolished 6 months ago, leaving only the land. I had arranged to sell the land through a real estate company, and just recently, a buyer had been found. The location wasn't far from the station, with a grocery store and a hospital nearby. The house was old, so we demolished it, but the land sold quickly due to its prime location. Explaining all this to my sister left her speechless for a while.
Hey, are you going to stay silent forever? I told you I'm busy, right? I'm going to hang up.
My sister snapped back to reality at my exasperated question. And yelled at me, furious.
How dare you sell my house without asking? My house? Why would that house be yours? Why? Because I'm the eldest daughter. The house and land are supposed to go to me.
I was thoroughly amazed by how little she had changed since childhood. In fact, it was impressive that at 39, she still believed such self-centered claims would work. I calmly explained to her everything that had happened since she eloped.
That house and land were formally transferred to me by our parents. So, the house and land are mine. I demolished the house because I didn't think anyone would buy it. All the titles are in my name. None of it belongs to you. What? Before you eloped, Mom's health was declining, so I moved back home, remember? After that, her condition didn't improve, it got worse. Around the age of 60, my mother seemed to despair over losing her beauty and began binge eating and drinking out of frustration. This unhealthy lifestyle took a toll, and her health deteriorated. Despite repeated warnings from doctors to change her habits, she refused to listen. Eventually, she continued this way until she severely damaged her health and ended up hospitalized. My father had always been a drinker and smoker. When Mom's health declined and he couldn't maintain his usual lifestyle, his stress levels increased due to the change in their environment. His drinking and smoking escalated, and he, too, ended up in the hospital. Though I thought it was their own fault, I quietly supported their hospital stays. However, instead of thanking me, my parents made these demands. When we get home, you need to take care of us. That's right. You're our daughter, so it's your duty to care for us. They had never treated me as a daughter before, but now that they were in trouble, they finally acknowledged me as their daughter. I realized then that they only saw me as a convenient servant. Seeing their repeated selfish demands, I fully understood. I had no familial affection left for these two. While I owed them for raising me until I graduated high school, that was all. I had never once felt happy being their family. Why should I sacrifice myself for such people? So, I came up with a plan and made them this proposal. Then, give me the rights to the house and land. Also, I'll manage your bank accounts. What? Are you after our money? Facing my angry parents, I replied expressionlessly. If you don't like it, that's fine. If you don't accept these terms, I won't take care of you. Though they looked frustrated, they eventually agreed to my terms. They had no one else to rely on. They had been so pleasant only to good-looking people that all our relatives had cut ties with them. Besides, as elderly people, they wouldn't be able to arrange care services on their own. As their biological daughter, my terms might seem harsh, but considering what they'd done to me, it was fair enough. After they were discharged, I hired external care services to look after them. The expenses were covered by their savings, and I'd supplemented the rest. I could have taken care of them myself, but I was busy with work and didn't want to take care of them even if they were my blood relatives. When my sister bullied me and made me cry, they did nothing to help. In fact, they once said this to me. Your crying face is really ugly. With a face like that, no one will ever marry you. And if you can't get married, don't think about relying on us. You need to live on your own. Those words cut deep into my heart and left scars that still remain. Why should I sacrifice myself to take care of people who said such things to me? They should be grateful I'm paying for their care services. As I explained all this, my sister suddenly remembered something and interrupted me. Wait, where are Mom and Dad? The house is gone, so where are they? Annoyed that she was now worried about our parents, I answered her question. They're in a nursing home. What? Weren't you supposed to take care of them in exchange for the house and land? I realized that home care wouldn't be enough. They're now in a facility with 24-hour care. One day, the caregivers who were helping us told me that it would be impossible to continue caring for my parents at home. Even after collapsing, my parents continued their selfish behavior. They would sneak to the smoking area or buy sweets from the hospital shop despite their health. Seeing this, I knew they would soon worsen their condition. So, I made the proposal to take over the house and land before they were discharged. Eventually, they won't be able to move around freely. I planned to get what I could before they completely lost their independence. Then I found a nursing home that could take them immediately and move them in. Since placing them in the facility, I hadn't visited them. So I didn't know their exact current situation. Mom and Dad are in a nursing home. This was a shock to my sister. It's no surprise that the people who once doted on her are now old and have to live in a nursing home. Margaret had hoped to rely on them by moving back home,
but her plans fell apart, leaving her shocked.
If you want to visit them, I can give you the address of the facility. Why are you so okay with this? Because I don't care what happens to them. Unlike you, I didn't receive any love from them.
The nursing home fees were paid from their pensions, and I covered the rest. I think I'm more of a dutiful daughter than my sister, who did nothing.
But you owe them for raising you. I'm repaying that debt by paying for their nursing home.
My sister, unaware of my cold feelings toward our parents, was completely bewildered.
I can't believe you're so ungrateful. Say whatever you want. Is there anything else?
As I coldly responded to my flustered sister, she said something unexpected.
Then give me all the money from the sale of the land. What? I have a husband and kids. Unlike you, I need to support my children. I need the money for that.
My sister screeched at me. Even now, she still thinks she can get away with such selfish demands. As a child, I couldn't defy her orders. Even as adults, she still believes I'll obey her every command.
No, the rights to this land are mine. I'm not giving you a single penny. What? Don't you care about my children? It's impossible for me to feel sympathy for children I've never met. Besides, those kids are with Ronald, who betrayed me and eloped without paying any compensation. Why would I want to help them?
Although the children are innocent, the fact that they're Margaret and Ronald's kids makes them repulsive to me. Even if they're well-behaved and nothing like Margaret, I want nothing to do with them. When I said that, Margaret furiously hurled insults at me. You ugly, single woman. Don't get cocky. You're beneath me in every way. You should just shut up and do as I say. She must think that yelling will make me comply. Her screeching was so unpleasant that I moved my phone away from my ear, frowning.
You pathetic loser, having your fiancé stolen by me. You can never win against me. Not then, not now, not ever.
Margaret's voice was full of triumph on the other end of the line. However, she was making one huge mistake. Single? I'm already married.
What?
Her stunned, pitiful response almost made me laugh. Trying to hold it in, I dropped the biggest bombshell.
I married someone from a partner company. His company is bigger than ours, and he's the most successful in his cohort. At 38, he's already a director and is set to be promoted to executive next year.
After Ronald's betrayal, I threw myself into my work, landing a major deal with a big company. He representative from that company, Scott, is now my husband. We hit it off immediately. Exchanged contact information, and started meeting outside work. Naturally, we began dating. After placing my parents in a nursing home, Scott and I got married.
No way! There's no way an ugly person like you could marry such a great guy. Calling men great catches and treating them like objects just shows you don't get it. My husband values and loves me deeply.
Scott was truly a blessing. He knew all about my family situation and accepted it all. In the end, I was glad I didn't marry Ronald. I once showed Scott a picture of Margaret, but she wasn't his type at all.
Your ex-fiancé was a fool. Not marrying such a wonderful woman like you.
Worried that Margaret might try to steal Scott, I showed him her picture. His reaction completely eased my fears. Seeing Margaret speechless at the shocking revelation, I dropped another bomb.
Having a tough time, huh? I heard Ronald is about to get fired from his current job. What? How do you know that?
After eloping with Margaret, Ronald left our company. Likely fearing my compensation claim. My company has a decent reputation, so Ronald and Margaret thought they'd be fine finding new jobs after eloping. However, things didn't go as planned. Initially, Ronald managed to get a full-time job, but he didn't fit in and quit soon after. He repeated this pattern, and now he can't get a full-time position, juggling multiple part-time jobs instead. He's on the verge of getting fired from those two, so he contacted his former colleagues, including details about his situation, to see if he could return to our company. One of those colleagues knew about what Ronald did to me and refused to help him return. They also informed me about Ronald's desperate attempts.
While your husband is struggling, you, Margaret, are just playing around every day, right? No wonder you're running out of money and trying to come back. Tough luck, huh?
By the way, Ronald's parents are reasonable people. They apologized to me several times for the broken engagement and promised not to support Ronald if he tried to come back. So, the only people Ronald and Margaret could rely on were my parents. But since my parents are in a nursing home, they can't help either. Margaret finally seemed to grasp this, losing her earlier bravado and falling silent. Then she tried a different tactic, begging for help through tears.
Please, Amanda. We can't go on anymore. We were evicted from our apartment because we couldn't pay the rent, and we can't return to where we were. You're the only one we can rely on. Please help us.
Listening to her sobbing, I responded coldly.
Why should I help someone who treated me so horribly? Have you forgotten what you did? Because of you, I almost couldn't go to college. I apologize for that. I'll apologize for everything I did to you. So please.
I cut her off.
No need to apologize. No matter how many times you do, I won't forgive you. What? There are things in this world that can't be fixed. Our relationship is one of those. We're sisters by blood, but our relationship is beyond repair. You need to understand that.
My sister's sobbing grew louder. But I mercilessly bid her farewell.
Goodbye, Margaret. I hope we never see each other again.
And with that, I ended the call, ignoring her crying. Before blocking her contact, I sent her one last message on social media. It was the listing for the rundown apartment I lived in during college. The rent was so cheap that even with my part-time job, I could afford it. Because my parents didn't provide any financial support, I lived in the dilapidated apartment that seemed on the verge of collapsing.
With this rent, you might just manage.
After sending that, I blocked her number. I even got a new phone to ensure she couldn't contact me again. Eventually, she and Ronald decided to move into that apartment. Ronald found a new part-time job, but their life remained incredibly difficult. Ronald eventually threatened to divorce her if she didn't start working. Margaret had been relying entirely on Ronald for years, so divorce would have made her situation even worse. She started working at a local bar. I saw a flashy woman, who I think was Margaret, entering the entertainment district once. Her former beauty was completely gone, and I barely recognized her. Margaret thought she had taken everything from me, but in the end, she lost everything. Meanwhile, my parents are reportedly quiet and well-behaved in the nursing home. The staff at the nursing home keep a strict watch on them, so they can't do whatever they want like before. It's a constrained life for them, but it seems they are living healthier lives than when they were at home. As for me, I'm living a peaceful life with Scott. We successfully sold the family property, and now we're discussing using the money to buy a house. I'm pregnant, and we think a single-family home would be best for our growing family. My life has been full of hardships, but I've finally found my happiness. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect it.